Hey everyone, it is Friday, so that means it is time for another MTG Top 10. This week's video is a continuation of an ongoing series of MTG Top 10s I've been doing on and off the last couple of months on budget staples in each color for Commander. And this is the final color of green. If you're looking to improve your green EDH deck but don't want to do it by spending a lot of money, you found the right video. Additionally, there should be an annotation that you can click on to bring you to the playlist of all of my MTG Top 10s, and included there are the rest of the videos on the topic. I also have a monthly series called Commander on a Budget, where I present a new budget deck every month and play some games with it, and you should see an annotation for that as well. I have a few more ideas for more lists related to building Commander and EDH decks on a budget, so more will be on the way. But anyway, as has been the case with each of these lists, all the cards I'm addressing are under $2 on Magic Online and in paper. Prizes will be displayed with each card that I discuss. So let's go ahead and get started. At number 10, I have Desert Twister. This thing might be a little clunky, being sorcery speed and costing 6 mana, but the fact that it can destroy any permanent is great. Beast Within is definitely better, but it is by no means a budget card. This gives you sort of a budget version of the card. Being able to destroy any permanent is a big deal. You can basically use it to deal with whatever your opponent's biggest threat on the board is, whether it's a planeswalker, a creature, an artifact, an enchantment. What's more, if you're playing a mono-green commander, and I should stress that this is where it's at its best, because if you have other colors, you're going to most likely be able to get some better removal. But if you're playing a mono-green commander, this is one of very few cards that can actually destroy a creature in green, so you should probably be playing it for that. At number 9, I actually have two cards, but they're so similar that they may as well be listed together. Also, I think running both is oftentimes the right choice. Green is, of course, very good at ramping, and there's no shortage of other budget cards that help you ramp. Explosive Vegetation and Skyshroud Claim come to mind, but I chose to go with these two because of their cheaper mana cost of 3 mana. These cards are great in a mono-green commander deck where you are trying to ramp into playing a big threat, but they're also great in a multicolor commander deck because they can effectively fix your mana for you by searching you up 2 different basic lands. They're basically the same card. The only difference between them is that Kodama's Reach is an arcane spell, and that will almost never be relevant unless you have a Kodama of the South Tree deck or something like that, and then I guess maybe it would be. But that's really the only difference between the two cards. So at number 8, I have Deadwood Treefolk. Commander is a format that often involves players casting haymakers that the other player has to find a way to deal with. If your opponent manages to kill your big threat, Deadwood Treefolk can get it back for you. What's more is, he actually draws you 2 cards, since you get a creature back when he enters the battlefield, and another when he leaves the battlefield. The way it is worded also means you can completely abuse Deadwood Treefolk with blink effects if you have them. On top of that, he provides a decent body that can probably help protect you as you try to rebuild the board with the card you got back from your graveyard. At number 7, I have Voli Beast Tracker. One thing that has been consistent in all of these videos about budget staples and Commander is that I've highly valued tutor effects. In a singleton format filled with super powerful cards, being able to tutor for whatever you need in a given moment offers you a huge amount of utility, and also allows you to get your biggest threats into play as quickly as possible. The Beast Tracker can find you creatures with a bunch of keywords: Death Touch, Hexproof, Reach, and Trample, which are all pretty green keywords. They're on flavor for green. It might sound like it is a bit narrow, but it can actually search up a lot of powerful creatures that are pretty commonly run in EDH. Woodfall Primus, Garruk's Horde, Wormcoil Engine, Rampaging Baloths. It can even get you some sweet utility creatures like Acidic Slime or Silklash Spider, and that's just in green. The Beast Tracker is obviously better in some decks than others, depending on what your other colors are or who your commander is, but if you have 5 or 6 targets for it, you may as well run it, especially if some of them are utility targets. At number 6, I have Verdant Confluence. I'm a pretty big fan of the Confluence cycle in general. They offer a lot of flexibility, and Verdant Confluence is no exception. 6 mana is kind of a lot, but having 3 pretty powerful options is nice. I think most of the time the first 2 options will be the ones you divide your choices between, but sometimes, especially if your deck is really into ramping, grabbing your 3 lands could be a big deal because it could get you to 9 or 10 mana. On top of that, it can greatly increase the strength of your creatures, putting 6+1/+1 counter places if you so choose, and probably the most powerful effect is it can get you back any permanents from your graveyard. So, the flexibility on this card is very good, and I think it should be in most green commander decks, at least mono green. At number 5, I have another tutor, Fierce Empath. Fierce Empath can get some of the same creatures that Voli Beast Tracker can, like Wormcoil Engine or Woodfall Primus, but it will usually hit even more targets, have options of even more targets, especially in a green deck filled with big creatures, like most of them are. It is also a little better than the Beast Tracker in that it puts the card in your hand instead of on top of your library. One of my favorite targets to grab with this is Duplicant, a great utility creature that can deal with almost any creature in the game, and it can also grab other important green staples like Terastodon. At number 5, or 4 rather, I have one of the good targets for Voli Beast Tracker that I mentioned, Acidic Slime. This card brings a lot to the table that I love. It's flexible, able to deal with 3 different kinds of permanents that are all very common in EDH, blowing up mana rocks or problem enchantments, even problem lands, or destroying a land to keep your opponent off of one of the other colors is pretty big. Not only that, but the dude comes with Death Touch, meaning he's basically always a 2-for-1. Your opponent loses a card when it enters the battlefield and has to either use a removal spell or lose a creature to its Death Touch, and the Death Touch is also what makes it a little bit better because it can be tutored for by your Voli Beast Tracker. At number 3, we have yet another tutor, and this is the most powerful of them all because it puts the creature into play instead of putting it on top of your library or into your hand. He is a bit narrower than Fierce Empath or Voli Beast Tracker, but he makes up for it by actually being able to grab either one of them. So you can play him and grab either one of them, and then still get the card advantage that the card grants you while also giving you a 6/5 body. I can fetch a lot of other good creatures as well, including Eternal Witness, Courser of Krufix, Somberwald Sage, Loaming Shaman, Reclamation Sage, and so on. Again, if your deck has 5 to 6 good targets for him, he should probably be in it, just because he brings a lot to the table for only 6 mana. At number 2, we have 2 cards. Both are great cards and should probably be played in just about any deck that has green in it. Both of them deal with artifacts or enchantments, meaning they provide some degree of flexibility. Dealing with those permanents is one of the things that green is the best at, so if your commander has access to these, you should probably play them because they're just that good. Crowson Grip has split second, meaning it can be used to disrupt problematic combos that make use of artifacts or enchantments, a kind of interaction green normally doesn't have access to. It's basically also the only card that can destroy a Sensei's Divining Top, which may be relevant. Reclamation Sage is nice because it provides a reasonable body and can deal with one of the same 2 permanents while also being easy for green to tutor because green has so many creature tutors. So these are cards that I wouldn't just play in a mono green deck, but in any green deck just because no one's going to be better at having cards that say destroy target artifact or enchantment than green is. So finally we go to number 1, and at number 1 I have Terastodon. Terastodon is the kind of huge creature you want to have in the late game. Not only can he help you finish the game with his 9/9 body, he also has an incredibly flexible Enter the Battlefield ability. He can blow up 3 non-creature permanents when he comes into play. This means you can blow up your opponent's problem enchantments, artifacts, planeswalkers, or lands. Now, they do get a 3/3 elephant for every permanent you destroy, so it is normally only correct to blow them up if you have a board state that doesn't care about 3/3 elephants, or if the permanent you destroyed was making your life miserable. The nice thing about Terastodon is that you can also have him blow up some of your lands and turn them into 3/3 elephants, creating a difficult board state for your opponent to deal with. This means you can get 18 power for 8 mana, basically, across 4 bodies. Typically, when one casts him, you usually are going to end up blowing up one of your opponent's best non-creature permanents and giving yourself a couple of elephants, and that's a pretty big swing. Anyway, that does it for this week's MTG Top 10. I hope this series of videos on building budget EDH commander decks has been useful. There's still more to come, including, for example, discussion of artifacts and lands. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to click the like button. If you think I left any cards out or overrated any, let me know in the comments. And if you want to make sure you catch an MTG Top 10 every week, including more future EDH commander videos, as well as other topics as well, click the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.